The heavy smell of exhaust and frying oil hung thick in the Jakarta air as a man in a faded uniform scrubbed a blackened grease trap with rhythmic precision. Nobody in the humid kitchen spared him a second glance, because to them, he was just another face in the endless cycle of minimum wage labor. He took orders for spicy fried chicken and mopped up soda spills from the linoleum floor while being barked at by a shift manager half his age. What those employees didn't know was that the man holding the mop didn't need the paycheck because he actually owned the entire international franchise. This was not a television show or a staged publicity stunt for a local news crew. It was a high-stakes experiment designed to uncover why one of the most profitable fast food empires in Southeast Asia was suddenly losing its soul. By the time the sun set over the city skyline, the secrets he uncovered would lead to a total corporate overhaul that changed thousands of lives forever.
The journey into the heart of the kitchen began months earlier when internal reports showed a massive dip in customer satisfaction scores across the region. While the board of directors argued over spreadsheets and marketing budgets in their air-conditioned skyscrapers, the man at the top decided that the only way to see the truth was to live it. He traded his designer suit for a polyester shirt and spent weeks training in a remote facility to ensure his kitchen skills were just mediocre enough to be believable. He arrived at the Jakarta flagship location under the alias of a struggling father looking for extra shifts to support his family. The manager hired him on the spot without checking his background thoroughly, a lapse in protocol that the owner noted immediately. From the very first hour, he was thrown into the chaos of the lunch rush, where the heat from the fryers reached unbearable levels, and the pressure to perform was relentless. As he worked through the peak hours, he witnessed a side of his company that never made it into the annual reports. He saw dedicated staff members skipping their own breaks to ensure customers got their meals on time. But he also saw how the equipment they relied on was constantly breaking down. One of the soda fountains had been leaking for weeks, and the staff had simply learned to walk around the puddle because the repair requests were ignored by upper management. The CEO felt a surge of frustration as he realized that the people on the front lines were being set up for failure by the very systems he had helped design. He spent his afternoon bagging orders and listening to the stories of his coworkers, many of whom were working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Their resilience was inspiring, but the systemic neglect they faced was a wake-up call that no PowerPoint presentation could ever deliver. The tension in the restaurant reached a breaking point when a particularly difficult customer began shouting at a young cashier over a minor order mistake. Instead of the manager stepping in to de-escalate the situation, she remained in the back office counting inventory and left the teenager to handle the abuse alone. The disguised CEO stepped in and offered the customer a fresh meal and a sincere apology, using the calm authority he had honed in boardroom negotiations. The customer left satisfied, but the interaction left a bitter taste in the owner's mouth regarding the lack of leadership at the store level. He realized that the culture of the brand had become focused entirely on speed and profit, completely discarding the human element of service. This was the moment he knew that a simple memo wouldn't fix the problem. He needed to implement a radical shift in how the company valued its people. By the end of the first 5 paragraphs of his journey, the executive had gathered more actionable data than his consultants had provided in a year. He realized that the gap between the corporate vision and the kitchen floor reality was a chasm that threatened to swallow the brand whole. The employees weren't just numbers on a balance sheet, they were the architects of the customer experience, yet they felt invisible to the people at the top.
He watched as a veteran cook shared her own lunch with a new hire who couldn't afford a meal, and the sheer kindness of the gesture stood in stark contrast to the cold efficiency of the head office. This experience was shifting from a business investigation into a personal mission to restore dignity to the workplace. He prepared himself for the night shift, knowing that the most challenging and revealing hours of his undercover operation were still ahead of him.
The night shift brought a different kind of intensity as the late-night crowds arrived and the staff began to show signs of extreme fatigue. The CEO was assigned to the drive-through window, where he spent hours breathing in car fumes and dealing with the erratic energy of the midnight city. He noticed that the lighting in the parking lot was dim, creating a safety concern for the female employees leaving after their shifts ended. When he brought this up to the supervisor, he was told that the budget for maintenance had been slashed to meet quarterly targets set by the regional office. It was a classic case of short-term gains causing long-term damage, and the owner felt a deep sense of personal responsibility for the oversight. He continued to work in silence, documenting every safety hazard and every broken process in his mind, while maintaining his persona as a humble trainee. During a rare 10-minute break, he sat in the corner of the stockroom with a group of workers who were discussing their dreams and fears. One young man spoke about wanting to study engineering, but not being able to afford the tuition, while an older woman talked about her pride in seeing her children graduate from school because of her hard work. They spoke of the company with a mix of loyalty and exhaustion, wishing that the higher-ups would just listen to them for once. The CEO realized that these people had the solutions to almost every problem the company was facing, but there was no channel for their voices to be heard. He felt a profound sense of humility as he listened to their unfiltered honesty, realizing that his wealth and status had insulated him from the daily struggles of the very people who made his success possible. The next day, he moved to the delivery department to understand the logistical challenges of navigating the congested streets of Jakarta. He hopped on a small scooter and spent the afternoon weaving through gridlocked traffic to deliver lukewarm burgers to impatient customers. He experienced the physical toll of the job, from the searing sun to the sudden tropical downpours that soaked him to the bone. He saw how the delivery algorithms often set impossible deadlines that forced riders to take dangerous risks just to keep their ratings up. One delivery took him to a high-rise office building where he had previously attended meetings, and he found it ironic that the security guards who used to bow to him were now waving him toward the service elevator. It was a masterclass in perspective that reaffirmed his decision to step out of his comfort zone. As he returned to the restaurant to finish his final shift, he witnessed the manager berating a staff member for a mistake that was actually caused by a software glitch in the point-of-sale system. The CEO almost broke his cover then and there to defend the worker, but he held back to see how the situation would resolve. The lack of empathy and the culture of fear were toxic, and he could see the morale of the entire team draining away in real time. He realized that the highest-performing stores weren't the ones with the newest equipment, but the ones where the staff felt respected and protected. He spent his final hours in the kitchen cleaning deep fryers and reflecting on the massive list of changes he was about to authorize. The undercover portion of his mission was ending, but the real work of transformation was just beginning. With the conclusion of the second batch of paragraphs, the magnitude of the needed changes was crystal clear. The CEO had seen the best and worst of his empire in less than a week, and the experience had changed him as much as it would soon change the company. He had a notebook full of names of employees who deserved promotions and a list of managers who needed to be retrained or replaced. He understood that the soul of the business wasn't in the secret sauce or the flashy advertising, but in the hands of the people who wore the uniform every day.
He took off his grease-stained apron for the last time, feeling a strange sense of loss for the camaraderie he had found in the trenches. He was ready to return to the boardroom, but he would never again look at a spreadsheet without seeing the faces of the people behind the numbers. The reveal was scheduled for the following Monday during what the staff thought was a routine regional training meeting. The CEO walked onto the small stage in the back of a hotel ballroom, still wearing the simple clothes he had worn in the kitchen, but this time he was flanked by his executive team. The silence in the room was deafening as the employees from the Jakarta flagship store recognized the man they had been ordering around for the past week. The shift manager, who had ignored the broken soda fountain, looked like she wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. The CEO didn't start with a reprimand. Instead, he started by thanking the staff for teaching him what it truly meant to serve. He spoke about the specific conversations he had in the stockroom and the challenges he faced on the delivery scooter, proving that he had truly been paying attention. He announced an immediate investment of millions into store-level infrastructure, ensuring that every piece of broken equipment would be replaced within 48 hours. He then moved on to the most impactful part of the announcement, a new scholarship fund named after the restaurant workers he had met during his shifts. The young man who wanted to study engineering was given a full ride to a top university, and the veteran cook was promoted to a regional training role with a significant pay increase. The CEO also announced a permanent change to the delivery algorithms to prioritize rider safety over speed, and he instituted a mandatory policy that every corporate executive must work 1 week a year in a restaurant kitchen. The room erupted in a mix of tears and cheers as the staff realized that their lives were about to improve in tangible, permanent ways.
The story of the undercover billionaire quickly spread through the industry, but for the CEO, it wasn't about the PR win. He spent the next few months personally overseeing the rollout of the new policies, traveling to other regions to ensure the changes were being implemented correctly. He found that by empowering his workers and listening to their feedback, the customer satisfaction scores began to skyrocket naturally. The underdog spirit he had seen in the kitchen became the new identity of the brand, moving away from a cold corporate machine toward a community-focused organization. He realized that the most valuable asset he owned wasn't the real estate or the brand name, but the trust and loyalty of his workforce. The experiment had cost him a week of his time and some physical discomfort, but the return on investment was immeasurable.
In the months that followed, the Jakarta flagship store became the highest-performing location in the entire country. The toxic manager was replaced by a leader who focused on mentorship and support, and the turnover rate for staff dropped to an all-time low. The CEO continued to make surprise visits to his stores, but this time he didn't wear a disguise. He wanted his presence to be a symbol of support rather than a test of performance. He would often be found in the back of the kitchen, chatting with the dishwashers and asking them what they needed to do their jobs better. The culture had shifted from one of surveillance to one of service, starting from the very top of the organization. He had discovered that when you take care of the people who take care of the customers, the business takes care of itself. As this third segment of the narrative concludes, the transformation of the company serves as a powerful testament to the impact of empathetic leadership. The CEO's willingness to get his hands dirty and face the reality of his decisions head-on saved a failing empire and restored the dignity of thousands of workers. It highlighted the dangerous disconnect that often exists in large corporations and provided a blueprint for how to bridge that gap. The story resonated far beyond the fast food industry, inspiring leaders in various sectors to reconsider their relationship with their frontline staff. The billionaire who once scrubbed grease traps had become a hero to his employees, not because of his wealth, but because of his willingness to see them as equals. The success of the Jakarta store was just the beginning of a global movement within the brand to put people first. The final phase of the corporate restructure focused on long-term sustainability and mental health for the employees. The CEO realized that the physical toll of the work was only half the battle. The mental stress of high-pressure service was equally taxing. He introduced a series of wellness programs and ensured that every employee had access to health care and paid time off, something that was previously unheard of for part-time workers in that region. This move was met with skepticism by some shareholders who feared it would eat into the profit margins, but the results proved them wrong. Productive efficiency increased because the workers were healthier and more engaged, and the brand loyalty from customers who appreciated the ethical treatment of staff led to record-breaking sales. It was a clear demonstration that doing the right thing was also the best thing for the bottom line. The impact of the CEO's journey was also felt in the wider community as the company began to partner with local farmers and suppliers. By sourcing ingredients locally, the brand supported the regional economy and provided fresher food to its customers. The CEO visited the farms himself, applying the same curiosity and respect he had shown in the kitchen to the people who grew the produce. He wanted every link in the supply chain to feel valued and fairly compensated. This holistic approach to business created a ripple effect of positive change that extended far beyond the walls of the restaurants. The man who had once been a silent observer in a chaotic kitchen was now a vocal advocate for ethical business practices on the world stage, using his platform to challenge other leaders to do the same. 1 year after the undercover operation, the CEO returned to the Jakarta store for an anniversary celebration. He sat down for a meal with the same crew he had worked with during his week in disguise. They laughed about how bad he was at bagging fries and how he had nearly tripped over the mop bucket on his first day. The atmosphere was light and joyful, a complete 180-degree turn from the tense and exhausted environment he had first encountered. The workers weren't afraid of him. They respected him as a colleague who had walked in their shoes. He realized that the greatest achievement of his career wasn't the billion-dollar valuation of his company, but the genuine smiles on the faces of the people sitting around that table. He had found the soul of his company by losing himself in the work of those who kept it alive. The legacy of the undercover mission continued to grow as the company expanded into new markets with the people-first philosophy as its cornerstone. Every new store opening began with the leadership team spending time in the kitchen, ensuring they understood the local culture and the specific needs of the staff. This practice prevented the corporate drift that had nearly destroyed the brand in Jakarta. The CEO's story became a staple in business schools and leadership seminars, a reminder that the view from the top is often distorted and that the truth is found on the ground. He remained committed to his mission, never forgetting the heat of the fryers or the weight of the delivery bag. The billionaire who became a dishwasher had learned that the most important lesson in business is that everyone matters, regardless of their title or their paycheck. In the final paragraphs of this documentary-style account, we see a complete circle of transformation. The billionaire who stepped into the shadows of a Jakarta kitchen emerged with a vision that redefined an entire industry. He proved that the most powerful tool a leader has is not a budget or a strategy, but empathy. By choosing to see the world through the eyes of his most vulnerable employees, he uncovered the hidden cracks in his empire and found the strength to mend them. The story ends not with a final profit report, but with a community that feels seen, heard, and valued. As the sun sets over Jakarta once more, the neon lights of the restaurant shine a little brighter, a beacon of what is possible when a leader decides to stop looking down and starts looking across. The secret life of this fast food legend is no longer a secret, but a guiding light for the future of business.